This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, sir, so we can get started.
All right.
Yes, we're recording it. Oh, and I see Governor Silvas. Thank you, Governor. Appreciate you joining us. Thank you. Okay.
Good morning.
Morning. All right.
Morning, Governor.
Okay, we're ready. Do you want to do the pledge of allegiance, please, sir?
Sure. Can we rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? Manella, would you like to lead us? Flag of the United States.
To the republic for which it stands, one nation.
Indivisible.
You did a great job. Okay. Do we need to bang this to start the
I think
meeting?
you should.
All right, great. Okay, this meeting is now in session. Can we go and please start off with a roll call
Yes,
and determination of a quorum?
we do have, I'll go ahead and do it since we have several virtually, that's okay. Virtually joining us, we have Mayor Ken Miyagishima.
Here.
We also have Mayor Eve, Adam Alpine. Proxy. Thank you, Mayor. We also have Judge Guevara, dedicated lately to every cause. Thank you, Judge, for joining us. We have Mayor Webb with Town of Valentine. And then we also have Representative Henry Rivera of City of El Paso. And we also have Mayor Michael Silvas from Isla del Sur tribe. And then in person, we do have Judge Neely, Hudspeth County, Sheriff Wiles, El Paso County, and Alderman Cantu with Son Nazario, and then we have City Representative Alejandra Anello overseas. So,
Wonderful. Happy to see that we have a quorum here. Do we have a review of the July 29th Rio Grande Council Board minutes? Motion to approve the minutes. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Representative Rivera.
Yes.
All right. Is there any questions at this time? Okay, I'd like to call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. And motion passes. Great. So now we can move to public comment.
yes, we don't have anyone who signed up for comment unless anybody from the audience would like to say anything. We do not have any public comments.
All right, great. Next we'll go up to the finance. So we have item number 1.
Yes. And us will present this item. And just to note, we do have Leah Hanani with El Paso ISD who's joined us as well. So I'll turn it over to Judy Cisneros, our finance director.
Good morning, again, Judy Cisneros, Finance Director, as Nick mentioned. My first agenda item, the Board of Directors approval is being requested, and this is to accept the GRP's audit engagement letter. And this is going to be for our fiscal year ending September 30th, 2022. What this letter means or does, it actually gives you the scope of services that the audit firm is going to be performing, as well as management's responsibilities. This is a letter that must be presented to you as the board at the beginning of the audit. Any questions regarding the letter?
Great. Is there a motion to approve? Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further?
Who was the second?
I'll second.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff. All right, is there any other conversations at this time? If not, call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Item number 2.
Board of Directors approval is being requested, and this is to extend the agreement that we currently have with Wells Fargo with this, they're requesting us to extend it an additional 3 years. The fees, the type of services that we're currently receiving from Wells Fargo will remain the same. We just thought it was in the best interest of the COG to just extend the contract as we have it, as we currently have it. Any questions regarding the agreement or the extension?
All right, is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve?
Thank you. Is that Representative Rivera?
Yes, sir.
Morning, sir. Thank you again for your motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there any other further question at this time? Sheriff Wells? All right, great. We will call the question at this time. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries. Okay, up next, we have agenda item number 3.
Yes, so what we have for today is we're asking for board approval to recommend the proposed budget for FY23 on behalf of the Council of Governments to the general membership, which will occur on September the 16th, 2022 at 11 a.m. And yesterday we had an extensive meeting with our finance committee where we discussed in detail the proposed budget and provided items that pertain to all of our divisions. I'm just going to highlight some of the items for you today. One of the more significant ones is that we are going to be including a 3.5% increase for all employees. And that is the way that that's going to be accomplished is by revising our salary table. You'll see that as a later agenda item, but within this budget does include for a 3.5% increase for employees. We are utilizing an indirect cost rate of 29.53, which is somewhat less than what we currently operate. And we are also utilizing the same rent cost. We did not have the rent lease available in time for the proposed, so we're utilizing the same numbers, but you'll see in another agenda item, we'll be presenting that new cost to you all as well. And if approved, we'll include that revision in a budget amendment 1. We did have present at the finance committee, Representative Schwartzbein, Representative Rivera, Judge Guevara, as well as Mayor Webb. So if there are any questions for me at this time regarding the budget, one item just quickly to mention as well is that we're looking at a total revenues of $10,128,013. Our total expenditures are $10,127,918, and the excess of revenues over expenditures is $95. So this is the amount that we'll be working with for our proposed budget. Once we get to our Amendment 1, which will occur in March, those numbers will look different because we'll be gathering our final numbers from our funding agencies through contracts as well as new commitments that will be coming in. So with that being said, are there any questions for me on this item?
Okay, is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve?
I'll second.
Okay, any further questions at this time? Okay, hearing none, call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Agenda item number 4.
Yes, thank you. So this is the proposed lease that we're asking for. What we're asking for approval today is to amend our current lease with GKW Properties. The lease is set to expire September 30th of 2022. So what we're asking for is to amend the lease to allow us to be in this location for another 10 years. The first 5 years would be at a rate of $15.07 a square foot per year. And the monthly cost would come out to $13,871.50. And then for the following 5 years, which would conclude in 2032, that would be at $15.40, which would be an amount of $14,175.25. The other item to note is that we do have square storage that we utilize here, and that amount would stay the same at $7 a square foot. So there is no additional amount charged out for that space. Are there any questions for us on this item?
And then in terms of the price per square foot, how was that ascertained? It was with DC or,
Yes, that's what was proposed to us from GKW.
okay. Sounds good.
Second, sir?
We have a first and a second. Any other further questions at this time? Okay, call the question. Oh, you have a hand up, Representative Rivera?
No, sir. No, sir. No.
Call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries.
All right, so then the next agenda item is the classification plan. This is an update to the plan. In previous years, you all had allowed us to update the plan when it came to changing job descriptions, adding job descriptions, modifying. But we did feel that it was important to bring this forward to you today because we are requesting to increase the salary table. So behind this agenda item, you'll see that we're showing the current salary table. And actually those who are here present with us, you can go ahead and move it to the next slide. Oh, I didn't put it on there. I'm so sorry. Those who are present on page 14 and 15, you'll see what the current salary table is and what it is proposed. So every single step is going to be increased by 3.5%. We know that the inflation index was much higher than that, but in terms of what our costs were, our fixed costs and what it is that we could afford, we landed at 3.5% for the increase for all employees. The other item to note, that there are some additional job descriptions that were added in there, so we went ahead and presented that to you. And then finally, for every job description that we have, we are going to be revising it to include under certificates and licenses that employees are responsible for completing any state mandated training as required. And that will allow us to fulfill the necessity to complete the cybersecurity training that's required of all local governments for employees. And so if anything else comes up throughout the years, we'll have that catch-all to cover this part. Are there any questions for me on this item?
I do have a question. Looking at the backup previously, I didn't see anyone in groups 1 through 3. Is that correct?
I think what happened is that we didn't make any revisions. If you look at page 13, there are positions in pay group 1 and 3.
Mr. Gutierrez, what was the question? I'm sorry to interrupt. What was the question asked?
Representative Anello asked, in terms of the listing of the positions by pay group, she didn't see any positions under pay group 1 or 3, but we do have 2 positions in pay group 1 and 1 under 3 right now.
Thank
So we do have those. Representative Anello, do you see that there?
Yeah.
Okay.
They just put in the
Okay,
When do these go into effect?
October 1.
When does your contract come back?
In October. So we will be discussing that in October. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any other further questions or comments at this time? Okay, call the question. In favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item.
Yes, so this item here, proposed bylaws changes, and we're requesting for you all to recommend these proposed bylaws changes to the general membership at the annual meeting, which will be held again on September 16th. And so the only item that's being suggested to be changed to the bylaws is the inclusion of a director position for the city of Socorro. So what we'll see for those again who are here with us physically, on page 4, we have the addition under election of officers. The way that it would be stated, it would say one city of Socorro director shall be a member of and designated by the mayor or city council. We did have a bylaws committee, and that included Mayor Webb, Representative Rivera. I also had, I believe Judge Guevara was also present at that committee meeting, but we were talking back and forth about whether we should exclude the position of the special districts, and that way we wouldn't have an additional member to the board. But in the end, we decided that it was best to leave that position there. It is an important position for those special districts. We have had difficulty in finding an individual who would want to serve in that capacity, but we'll just keep working at it so we can have someone available in that position for FY23. But again, this was all started in February of 22 when I first brought this to you all, where we wanted to look at the inclusion of the City of Socorro. And we do have Mayor Avalos here today with us as well. And so if this does come to fruition, maybe we'll be able to see Mayor in a permanent capacity. So are there any questions for me with regard to this item? Representative Betta, Mayor Webb, is there anything anything else to add, or we're okay with that?
I think you covered it. I do, you know, we went back and forth on this, and we also want to be cognizant of the difficulty that we have, that Annette and her team have with pulling a quorum. So we really did try to take all of that into consideration, but with the importance of the role of the water group, we did feel at the end that it was important to try and keep that spot available if we could get anybody to fill it. But I think that we're all up for discussion on it, but that's where we really came to at the end.
The reason,
And I have to say, Ms. Gutierrez, is that I agree with everything that was changed here. Thank you. It was a great job.
what was the reasoning to add a director from Socorro?
Well, since Socorro is the second largest city in the
What's
the
their
county,
population?
they're at 35,000 according to the 2020 census. And so in looking at the representation, we thought that they were not represented in that manner. And so that was the premise for having this agenda item brought forward.
So who's the closest to them? Is it Horizon?
Horizon will be
How
next.
many do they have?
They have 22. And we did talk about that in terms of whether we want to look at establishing a cap for any community that gets up to a certain amount. Maybe 35,000 is the cap. But at this point, we still have a little bit of play with that, because it probably will take maybe another five years, I would say maybe 5 to 8 for Horizon to be in that position. But after that, it's going to be, I think, I don't have a crystal ball, obviously, but I think it would be difficult to have any other communities get to that level.
You know, my only concern with this is when you take like the city of El Paso, for instance, what's your population? 600 and 700,000?
Yes.
Close.
You have 3, right?
Yes.
So the amount that you're representing, and then you have one from Socorro representing 35,000.
Mhm.
By the county's reps.
At 3.
So it just, I don't know.
Yeah, I agree.
Seems a little off to me, but.
I guess I looked at it in terms, and just as a reminder, it was brought forward to us by one of the council members from Socorro. And I think that even though they are covered, their needs are so much different than any of the other communities that are smaller population, that I could see a justification in terms of them having a seat at the board, in terms of communication they have with the other board members and the items that are brought forth, because oftentimes they will be able to apply for funding that none of the other communities are, because of the threshold they have for their population.
And then more to that, Ms. Gutierrez, they are in the process of really expanding and growing that city. And so that was another consideration we took into. That's another thing we took into consideration.
You know, I probably shouldn't complain too much, because in effect, the county's getting 4, because they're being represented by the county right now, and now they're going to have their own. It's just, I don't know. Static.
Dues?
Yes. Yes.
And they, am I wrong? Were they on there before and then were removed?
No, we never had Socorro as,
Who was on there that we weren't able to get a member?
it was the
Well, that wasn't
IS,
paying their-
it was the ISDs. It was Isleta and Socorro. Mhm. Mhm.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah, I can't support it, but I mean, I understand your reasoning, but it just seems inherently unfair to
We
these
do-
other entities.
And we do have, so, and
Because now the county's gonna have 4 really, because that's the county is being covered by the county right now. It just, I don't know.
Is there an opportunity for the other municipalities within the county to join if they're interested? Like, can we do that? Saying, okay, well, we're accepting Socorro, Verizon, if you were interested, then we will give you the opportunity to do so.
Well, we already have all the other municipalities as members of the organization. They're just not on the
board,
on the board. They're general membership. So Alderman Cantu represents the smaller communities in El Paso County.
Yeah.
And then we have Ralph representing the smaller communities within the 5 counties. I think what you're saying is that essentially then it would looks like maybe there's actually 3, 4, 5 coming from the county. But I do think that they all do represent different interests. So, but I understand your position. I think.
Yeah, I mean, how far down are we gonna go to represent each small entity? Because that's still relatively small. And when you say they grow, definitely they can, although they're limited by their city limits, and the growth in the county is far greater. You know, just look around East Lake. That's not in Socorro.
No, El Paso's annexing that as much as they can.
Yeah, but even they're gonna be limited to the
Between
rules of
the Horizon
annexation,
and
how
El
far they
Paso.
can bump through there.
Can you, Annette, you were explaining this, and I don't think I really registered it. What was the original recommendation? Was to add them?
Yes. Mhm.
I think she was saying, but to eliminate the special.
To eliminate the
But they
special
decided to
district
keep
member.
that one.
The special district being like one person for all of the.
Meaning for the water districts and, because those are our special district members at this point. I think that obviously we're not always going to agree, and that's why we have our board for you all to decide which route you would want to go. But this is something that we did bring forward in February, and we were given the green light, so to speak, in terms of having that discussion to see how that would look in terms of changed bylaws or proposed bylaws. And so this is what we have forward to bring to you today. I don't know if there's anything else you all would like, if there's any other comment.
My only comment would be that I guess I don't see any issue with representation. I feel like that's what our role is supposed to be, is to represent all communities and areas. And so if we need to add in elected officials and to do that, or roles to do that, then I say personally, the more the merrier. That's my feelings on it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess what my concern is, and I don't know if this is the sheriff's concern, so I'm not speaking for him, but I see where he's got my brain like going is like we have currently a policy that you have one person that represents the small communities in El Paso County and then one representative that represents the small communities. And that changes because we have proxies, but then if you're just starting to add in an individual from one community, it doesn't seem necessarily fair. You know what I mean? Like I think about the rural communities outside of El Paso County and they have one representative, right? But the other cities who want to get involved don't have the opportunity to do that because our bylaws state that you have one representative. And so, but we're making an exception for this one city. That's where I'm kind of like that. It doesn't seem fair to the other cities if they were, willing to participate, but I don't know what the conversation with them has been.
I think the only, I guess to answer that question, my point to make would be that those representatives, such as Mayor Webb, they're much more homogeneous in their needs. They're not home rule cities per se. So whenever their needs are brought forward, or the way that they can operate together in partnership is very different than Socorro. And then Socorro is too small for the city of El Paso and too small for Las Cruces and too small for the county of El Paso. So they're kind of on their own in their own island. And so I think that the points that they would bring forward in terms of what they would want represented, I think are vastly different than both of those sides. And so they're kind of on their own. That's how I see it.
Every community can make that argument.
Right.
So
That's what I was going to say. I agree about representation, but what is it that they're complaining about that hasn't been properly represented before this board? Is there specific things that we've overlooked or haven't addressed with them, or that they're concerned about, or they just want somebody on the board?
I think it was primarily the community being the size that it is, and knowing the value of the council of governments and what we bring to the table, and with our board of directors having a seat at the table. That I think that really is what it comes down to.
And again,
I'm sorry, sir. Go ahead. I'm sorry, sir. Go ahead.
goes back to what Annette was saying, is that any community can argue that, right? And again, when you look at the representation, I was even noticing like Las Cruces, what's their population? 300,000? They have what, one rep?
Mayor, what, do you want to,
Well,
Mayor
But
Miyagoshi,
this is
Ms.
also
Chair.
what's interesting too, because like.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair, thank you, Annette and Mr. Chairman, and I guess that was that Sheriff Wiles? It sounds like him, I'm not too sure. But anyways, our population in the city proper is about 115, and then the county is about another 120, so we're about 235 total.
And they have one. And I just look at the fairness of the representation.
I mean, Representative Betta, I think you were going to say something as well?
Yes, ma'am. I want to know if you have a representative from Socorro present, so might want to chime in on this.
We don't want to put her
We
on
do
the
have,
spot.
we have Mayor Avalos.
I was like avoiding looking at her.
What everybody's saying, but we are very different from other communities, the rest of the rural cities where we're in a growing phase. Like Ms. Annette said, we're at 36,000. We're not that small anymore. We're kind of getting up there. We can be classified as closer to San Elizario, which they're pretty small and they have very historic output. We do have our own historic area, but we're not like San Elizario, we're not like Clint, we're not like Fabens, and certainly we're not like Horizon, where the people are probably younger. The community is much younger. Population is getting up there as well, but we have an older population that deserves to be heard, and I think it's time.
So, ma'am, can you answer some of the sheriff's concerns also, and what you're saying?
Would you mind saying that one more time, Representative?
I was addressing is if you could answer some of the concerns that were brought up by Sheriff Wiles.
I think she is.
Yeah, we're like I said, we're very different than the rest of the cities. I know maybe our population isn't up there and the representation might be from the county, but we're very different from El Paso itself. Our population is mostly elderly, Spanish speaking. So I think when I've come to these meetings, I take this back to our city manager, our grants department, and, we work this to see how Socorro can be helped. So it really means a lot to us.
Can I counter that? Because one of the concerns was that the sheriff brought up was, have you been served as or underserved?
I think we've been forgotten for a very long time. And that's just a personal feeling that I have, that Socorro usually gets forgotten.
I mean, I don't know. I feel like Socorro's been pretty active in the COG lately too.
Recently,
Yeah, applying for, and so that's
Yeah,
my
I'd say-
follow-up question, and I should know this. But will adding another member via bylaws change committees, right? Because you have on Homeland Security, and I can't remember the acronym for the other.
First responder. That's why.
You've got Socorro applying for a lot of those grants and being awarded a lot of them, which is great. But will their representation on those committees, if they have one, because the other smaller communities don't have that, that's where I'm also.
It
Where does
wouldn't
this-
change, it wouldn't change the format. That wouldn't mean that they get one position automatically to any of those committees. All it is if you're the chair of the council of governments for the board of directors, then you have positions within those committees.
I mean, a way to change this that I think could be comfortable is that instead of one person, instead of just adding Socorro, I don't know if anybody is even interested in me saying this, but instead of adding just Socorro, is adding 2 representatives from the smaller communities in El Paso County and the outlying rural counties.
So you did see the challenge we had today with our
I am
quorum.
aware
So
of
that's
that.
the only, I mean,
Fair.
obviously, if we could have everyone here, I think that'd be great opportunities for collaboration. We try to be mindful of our time with you all, so we only have our agenda items when they're action. We don't have, we don't have meetings every month, so we're keeping that to 8 to 9, but it would be a challenge if we did get to that point. But I will yield to you all
I wasn't
decide.
in this meeting. I was supposed to be there.
Ma- Mayor Pro Tem,
Yes, Representative Rivera.
some of these valid points that are being brought up right now, I feel that we could table this and take those into consideration and look further into those before we take a vote on whether we do make this change or not. Can we table this and make a motion to table?
The only concern with the timeline is that if we want to present this to the general membership, I need to submit this 10 days before. So I would have to ask you all to reconvene a meeting for this agenda item for you all to pass, to recommend the bylaws, so that way we can get it out to the general membership.
A question. So how the next most populous small city is what?
Horizon,
How many?
they're at 22,000? At 30.
35. I mean, another way is to add a city that's over 30,000.
But see, then you're overpopulating the El Paso County and not the rural communities. And then it is an uneven, unfair split that way. I mean, I'm fine to approve this today, but I would ask that we continue meeting the bylaws committee and see what we can do to help, because I do think it becomes a disadvantage for the rural communities, and that's not fair. I mean, you do have, and I understand that they're in proxy right now, but you do have a mayor from one of those small cities on the meeting and has been consistently. So I don't know that you necessarily, I mean, you used to have a mayor from another one of those cities consistently until they were no longer that member from the rural communities. I do know that's difficult, and there does need to be a conversation about making quorum and what the repercussions of that are if you are continually absent, which is one we've never had. But I just, we don't want to be unfair to those other communities, and balancing that out, I think is very important.
I think that we, and honestly, when we had the meeting, I don't think any of us thought about the pendulum swinging, you know, more towards urban El Paso and the implications of that. But I do, I think that if we were to give it some more time to think that through and see how we would want to incorporate additional members, if at all, from the rural communities, I think there would be interest there. I think we do get good representation from our rural attendees, so that's something else we can look at as well.
And what is the revenue from the dues with the rural member?
Oh, no, they've already been part of the membership, so they're part of the, so, and just as, you know, just to throw another item into the mix, I did meet with Sullivan Park, New Mexico, and they were interested in learning more about the council governments and the membership and the cost for that. I don't know offhand how much, I don't recall what the population is, but, you know, so I think we will be brought with these dilemmas as other entities may want to come into the council governments. But when I say that, it's really only going to be on the New Mexico side, because within Texas, every city and county is a member of the council government. So it's just a matter of who is going to be at the board of directors, not the general membership. Yes, yes. Okay. So, Mayor President, what would you like to do next?
Well, is there a motion to approve?
Do we have?
I make that motion to approve.
We've had a robust conversation. Is there anybody else that would like at this time to add their further contributions to this conversation? Okay, hearing none, we'll call the question.
President Solson, is that what the amended language, or is that what the language that's written in, right?
Yes, sir, as presented.
As presented.
Mr. Chairman, this is Ken Miyagishima. Did you need a second before you would call for the question?
Here we have a second. Time.
Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
Did that. All right, so we'll call the question. So all in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. Any opposed?
Just
Okay.
Okay, please note for the record that Sheriff Wiles was opposed. All right, now we can close the door. Sheriff. Okay, thank you again, everyone. All right, next item.
The motion.
The motion did
Okay,
pass.
thank you.
Wiles opposed.
Okay, so our next agenda item is to form a nominations committee for our next, for our annual meeting. And at this meeting, we'll be voting on officers for the president, vice president, second vice president. And then also we would be asking for representatives for members within, or a representative for small communities within El Paso County as well as rural counties. And then representative for member cities within Doñana County. And then also we would have our representative from our special district members. So I promise I won't take too much of your time. If I can just get at least 2 to 3 members to serve on the nomination and get this squared away quickly. Are there any volunteers? Speak now. Come on. Anyone?
Nat, you broke up at that last part, I think, for virtual. Can you say that again? I'm sorry.
And this is the part where I'm groveling to get nomination, a committee to be formed for nominations committee. So I just see 2 or 3 members serve on that committee. Currently, we do have Mayor Webb is our second vice president, our first vice president. So customarily, she would be moved up to president. Representative Betta would be first vice president. And so we would need someone to fill in the spot for second vice president. And then we also would need for the small communities within the rural counties, which is currently Mayor Webb, as well as Alderman Cantu for El Paso County. Reverend Schwartz.
Yes.
All right. I just need one more. Thank you. Yes. Okay. Okay, so we have Representative Anello and Representative Schwartz for the nominations committee. So you want to ask if there's a motion for that?
Is there a motion?
So move.
Great.
Mr.
Any other
Mr. Phillips, could you repeat that, please? You were breaking up on my end over here. Could you repeat that again?
Yes, sir. Let me, we're going to see if we can do a few. We've got Representative Anello and Representative Schwartzbein, and they'll serve on the nominations committee. So they'll nominate out those positions.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Stress us too.
Yes, you too.
Oh, gosh.
Happy, joy.
Yes.
It's gonna be fun for everyone.
We can't have Representative Rivera too, or no?
No, because he's potentially on the slate for officers. So.
Ooh, interesting. Potentially. Great. So is there a motion to approve?
Motions?
Oh yeah, we already did that, sir.
Oh, we
We had
did?
the motion. We had Representative Hannany and Sheriff Wiles.
Yes. Call the question. You got it? That's confusing.
What?
All in favor?
Hi.
Aye.
Oh.
Aye.
Passes.
Aye.
We're getting a little bit of feedback. Nisi okay, there we go. All right, so this is our holiday schedule for 23. We're asking for approval from the Board of Directors. These are the same holidays that we had in the current fiscal year. I do want to know, just full transparency, we have been for several years now closing the office the week of Christmas, so that is still in there. And then if you recall last year, we also added Cesar Chavez and Juneteenth as well. Are there any questions for me on this item? Or if this is your opportunity to take any away if you'd like.
Too, right? When I was president?
Yes,
He
you
was
did.
saying, I had 2 holidays and I was president. now
No,
two
I,
parents.
I would just like to say some comment here, and I think this
That's
is
great.
a good slate of holidays here, obviously. One thing that I think would be beneficial from the office is as this calendar is sent out to the different members of the COG, to also include other holidays of different other sort of faiths as well, so that the school districts that are part of the COG, the cities that are part of the COG, can be aware of other important holidays as well for their employees and for their constituents as
Yes,
well.
sir.
So,
Well, and when the holiday schedule is made up, right, it was kind of a less than the county, more than the city.
Yes, but at this point, I think we're pretty close to the county. I don't,
I think it's like 18 days, 18 8-hour days.
11,
2, 3.
well, and the week.
Well, we have the
Well,
week.
some of yours aren't full 8 hours. Well, but it's the Christmas week.
Oh,
we don't
Veterans Day
get the whole
Friday,
week
is
off.
that
We
right?
have 13. We have 13 holidays, but then you add 5. So we're right at the county. 18. Yes, ma'am.
But Representative Schwartzman does bring up a good point. Do you have a policy that if someone has a religious holiday that's not recognized, that they can take that holiday as one of these?
Yes, that's in our policy. Mhm.
yeah, I just think about, holidays like Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur and others that, students, there's been reports of students not being able to have excuse or anything like that. So just think it's important that when we send out this calendar, also include those as well, just so that there's awareness
Yes, sir.
for the different administrative bodies.
We'll do that.
All right, great. Is there a motion to approve this wonderful holiday schedule?
I move.
Second.
Yeah, okay.
That was an easy one. Are there any other comments or questions at this time? All right, I would like to say all in favor.
Aye.
Aye.
Happy holidays. All right, next item.
Okay, so this next item is, I'm asking for approval to allow us to enter into an MOU with the Small Business Administration. We currently have an agreement with them. It's set to expire, so this will just allow us to renew that agreement. And it's a cooperative interaction between SBA and the Council of Governments that will work together within our 7-county region. And so are there any questions for me on this item?
Your second.
Second.
All right, is there any further comments or questions at this time? Okay, hearing none, we'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Next item.
All right, so a unique situation. I'm not sure where we'll want to go with this, but we wanted to bring this forward to you. We're asking for Board of Directors approval to allow staff to identify potential funding sources for the Starlight pilot project. So let me just walk you through this. Through the work of our local governments manager, Peggy O'Brien, who's here with us today, she has, and as well as the Rural Broadband Committee, who has been meeting extensively over the last year. The Starlink pilot project is this. The committee has identified 30 households in remote locations in the 5 rural counties who are not connected to broadband and cannot afford it. Starlink has offered an angel agreement to service these households for $599 plus $50 equipment with a minimum service contract of 1 year. So that would be $110 a month, which would approximately come out to $2,000 per household. And so Starlink is not participating in the Affordable Connectivity Program, which does subsidize broadband to low-income households by $30 per month. So the idea is that we, the Council of Governments or another entity, could serve as the entity to sign on as the parent customer, and the households would be the sub-customers. So the parent will be obligated to Starlink and will have to collect the funds from the sub-customers or from an entity if we're able to find funding for that initiative. The parent can approve, we can also approach private philanthropy to fund this for 1 year. And so with the plan to step down the subsidies over time and then make those customers responsible for the payment if they want to continue. The benefit of this model is that with one customer, the equipment can be transferred to other households. So when it's out of the marketplace, the equipment is meant to remain at each location. So if any of the sub-customers move or default, the equipment can be transferred to another eligible sub-customer. this is a big ask, and I'm not prepared to say we want to be the entity to do this, but I think we should at least try to find the funding for these customers, because, you know, this is 30 that we found, but I'm sure there's more if we did more, even more research. And we've already talked about how great the need is for broadband, especially in our communities and rural areas. And so we wanted to bring this forward to you, have some discussion, maybe potential partnerships. I don't know if any of the counties or the cities would even, if you are looking at doing any of these kinds of things with your ARPA funds, but we just didn't want to omit or overlook this this population that's targeted in terms of these 30 households. Any questions?
Question.
Senator
Sir,
Rivera?
Are you also going after state funding? I know they have plenty of this funding for this particular issue on broadband.
yes, I think the only problem is that this kind of project at this point wouldn't fit any of the funding sources, because they're looking at laying fiber. I mean, the communities, that being 30, we will definitely look and see if that's a possibility. At this point, we haven't been able to find anything that really is a niche for this kind of initiative.
Okay, thank you.
So what is the financial commitment from the COG for this initiative?
Well, you know, so that it would be the 2,000 times the 30 households. So obviously we're not in the business to lose, you know, $60,000 potentially if we can't get, we know that it's gonna be difficult for them to make payment. We don't know if they'd be able to make a portion of that $110. That's why we were hoping to see if we can find some sort of a private foundation who would allow for this initiative, because it would be focused on West Texas, and there are several foundations who are working in that arena. Peggy, is there anything else you would like to add?
Can everybody hear me? Can everyone hear me? Thanks for even talking about this. So
How about you come up here with me so that way they can hear from on the other side.
So I was speaking with Starlink again on this yesterday, just to see if there were any more details in these angel agreements that might be germane to this conversation. And there are two other ones that have existed. One was in Ector County, and the other is in Pecos County. And what it was a private philanthropy donor donated the whole thing, and none of the customers participated in contributing to it. And then there were either extensions to the angel agreement, it ended, or the residents then figured out how to pay for it themselves. And maybe within this year period, there could be some affordable care money or something coming for connectivity that might apply to this population. Maybe the COG we could add an administration fee on top of the private ask, and then we could just do it that way, because there would be footwork with respect to liaising with the residents, but it wouldn't be a pass-through to them for this 1 year. So it would just be sort of like a four-walled time period where we could test the idea and see if it works.
We have not approached the individual counties or cities to see if they would want to use any of their ARPA funding for this initiative. I think the one challenge will be that Starlink would have to have several agreements throughout the county, and that probably is going to be, obviously it would just be more work for them. Not to say that it couldn't be accomplished, but this has just been the work of the broadband committee that Peggy's been leading the charge on. And so again, we know how important broadband is. So we essentially would just, there's a possibility that you all would say, we don't need to be getting in this business, it's too much of a liability. No, my motion is that you take no action as the COG. Or you could allow us to at least research to see if we can find funding, and then we would bring it back to you for consideration.
Okay. Particularly with Starlink in general, which I'm not a fan of.
No.
But also in like T-Mobile, well, Starlink is partnered with T-Mobile doesn't currently service these areas. So how would that work?
I wasn't aware of the T-Mobile component.
That was my understanding.
Really?
Elon Musk's big thing is to partner with.
Well, it's a
T-Mobile.
separate initiative. Starlink is something completely separate.
But
I mean,
Starlink also has to partner with, because they're not servicing internet in that area, so they have to partner with a local company, correct? They're just coming in and putting in the correct infrastructure in the homes. Is that correct?
It's a satellite dish basically, and then
And
It
who is
goes-
the internet service out? It's AT&T and Big Ben.
well, there's FiberLight, there's, well, this is a different arm of this initiative with broadband because I think Judge Rivera talked about the federal funding. And so the federal funding, Starlink isn't eligible for federal because it covers terrestrial. But there is a terrestrial component. So maybe that's what you're talking about. And I'm not too,
Yeah, because there needs to be an actual internet provider you can put in the infrastructure, but someone does need to be providing the actual internet.
right.
And so I guess my question would be, have we had conversations with other companies that are in the area to get like a competitive price? That could be a little bit more affordable, right? I think definitely your biggest cost is going to be getting whatever infrastructure it is around the home.
I think
but-
that so these 30 homes are as remote as you can get. That's where the committee came up and said, okay, we can't find any provider who wants to come out here. So at this point, they're just not going to have internet, and that's how it stands. So Starlink was kind of the last resort in terms of providing this initiative. So what we could do is I mean, obviously that part that you mentioned in terms of whether they're partnering, we can find that out.
Yeah.
If to see what the partnership is about, if anything at all.
Yeah, I mean, I think I would really like to see and understand what the rural communities are doing with broadband dollars. I think we've talked about this before. Like, what is their plan and how does that, I mean, I have this own issue with my own city, so I'm not trying to jump on anyone else, but we have all these broadband dollars. What is the plan, right? Are you trying specifically to connect to these areas that don't have access to internet? And so how is that going to partner with this? Because if they're going to end up spending their money on something totally different, doesn't connect to these homes, and these people are out in a year, right? Because this is, I mean, my issue with Starlink is we don't have a guarantee that it is a long-term solution to anything.
No.
This is like someone creating a pet project that in 2 years could pull out and say, I don't want to do this anymore. And now these people have infrastructure for an organization or an internet company that no longer exists. And so understanding how they can be partnering with the county to make sure that it's a long-term impact, I think is really
I
important.
think what we can also do is we can bring this back in October with some more information. I think in terms of the communities, I mean, we've got Mayor Eves here, we've got Judge Neely. In terms of us, we did our research to see how the ARPA funds were being used. In terms of those funds, primarily all going towards construction projects, water, wastewater. So broadband has not been on the top, but that's where, with these funds that are coming available from NTIA and other sources, a lot of it is going to be the private sector applying for those funds on behalf of those communities. So that the counties and cities aren't really going to be the ones applying. So in terms of a plan for broadband, it's still very minimal at this point. And so with the work that Peggy's been doing, she's been working with all the providers, and they've been very cooperative, which doesn't seem like that would be the case, but they have been sharing information. So Peggy's just really working at all angles, trying to see how we can be more effective on this item.
Yeah, I mean, it would be great if the counties in the areas could put aside ARPA funds of their broadband funds to cover this. And I'd like for y'all to have it.
Chair.
Yes, Representative Rivera.
I'll wait for Representative Nolo to finish.
That's all right, I'm good.
Are you done?
Yes.
Thank you, Representative. I think you bring out a great point, and I think if we vote for this, I think we should to give you direction to continue looking for ways to fund this, because I really agree with what Representative Little said. You know what, we can't just do this and it's just a project for them and then they decide to leave. You know what I'm saying? So if we can just give you direction, if this is what this vote is for, to give you direction to continue to speak this and find ways of funding, then I would say we do so instead of committing right away.
I just want to say that you know, I think it's important that this is
important. I agree with you.
Representative. Yeah, I know. I just want to state that in regards towards what Representative Vanello brought up, the Starlink T-Mobile is an initiative that won't even roll out till next year. That's an initiative specifically focused on enhanced cellular service for cell phones, not for broadband. and that Starlink is an established company with hundreds of satellites. They've actually gone through 2 generations of satellites at this point and are also providing a lot of broadband internet service in Ukraine as well in terms of the war there. So I don't really think it's a factual sort of suggestion to say that this is like a fly-by-night enterprise. Currently, you know, with,
No, I'm not
with
putting my faith in like a millionaire who's decided
So-
he finally wanted to do some philanthropy work and he can change his mind in 2 years and
so,
not do it.
and
and or
I
go
have the floor,
bankrupt.
Representative Vanello. You know, this is one company as part of other companies that is being led by, including advanced aerospace initiatives with rockets that are currently replacing our own NASA inventory, as well as the leading manufacturings for solar panel manufacturing, as well as electric vehicles, which has accelerated other companies as well. So what I think it makes sense to go and look at doing more due diligence, but I don't think it's a fair characterization to say that this Starlink enterprise and Starlink company is something that's a fly-by-night enterprise. And to suggest that, I think is a little disrespectful.
Oh, I'm not gonna apologize.
So
to you about that.
Representative,
I'm sorry.
sorry, Ms. Manning.
I just have a quick question. Sorry. How did you identify these 30 households?
I contacted all of the counties and to see where there was no service. And a bulk of it is in Hudspeth County. But within each county, there are pockets that are not on the list of fiber, step 1 or step 2 in the near future. So this is sort of a stopgap in a way to see, number one, if we can get those houses connected. And then there's also other issues like digital literacy, computers, phones, because a lot of people who can't afford internet can't afford the components that receive that ability.
My head goes right away wondering where these households are districted to in terms of school districts and whether there are children in there. I mean, I would be curious to know, maybe you can bring that information next time, what the demographics of these households are, because it's possible that there's children in the households that really need the internet service for their schoolwork.
Well, that's great that you brought that up, because in Ector County, the private philanthropy, that was a main thread in that endeavor, because it was also in the heat of COVID, and so the kids were at home and had no ability to do their schoolwork.
And there may be an opportunity there to utilize some of, some funding from ESSER monies, or so I would just be interested to know that information.
Thank you, that's great.
So if somebody would like to make a motion to have us do more research and bring this item back to you in October with some possible recommendations, we would do that. Thank you.
Second.
All right, is there any further questions at this time?
Yes, I have a question. So to fund this program, it'll cost 60,000 a year, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so what if our Pueblo donates the 60,000 to the COG and you all take care of that for
I'm
that
sorry.
first year?
Hear you correctly?
What if the Pueblo donates the 60,000 to the COG and then you all distribute those funds for the first year?
Well, I think that would obviously take care of the request.
Because we can ask for the donation for Speaking Rock, but I mean, we'll donate it for the first year, and then after that, then we'll find other ways to fund this program, but just to get it up and going.
60,000 for the first year, but the next year is
Right.
not,
You're right.
it's
The next
cheaper
year's cheaper.
because you're not have to buy the equipment.
Yeah.
Just the subscriptions.
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah, I mean, if we could get that information too.
I think it goes about 40, like 39 something. If you're
I'm
just
s-
doing
I'm still
110 times 30
gobsmacked with-
households
Oh, no,
times
it's the-
12 months.
That's right, but then the equipment plus that, yeah.
Yeah,
So
but you only have to buy the
next year.
equipment once.
Right.
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, so
Mhm.
six,
People,
well,
that's what-
yeah, but then, okay. So 60, well, let's just talk about this one. 60,000 for the first year and then about 40 for the next.
But ARPA funds are so good for 6
No,
years.
no, I
think
wasn't.
we
I was
should have
just-
that commitment for the following.
I was
year.
just saying, because he said 60,000 a year
So
Right.
for the
We-
first year.
would we, may we have a conversation with you then to see if that might be a possibility?
Yes.
Okay. Well, goodness, this doesn't, thank you, Governor.
Well, Ms. Gutierrez, I still say we move on Representative Anello's amendment there to direct you to look into this. Can we take a vote on that?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, you're right. I apologize. So Representative Schwarzman, we did have a motion and a second for us to do the research and bring
Yeah.
it back in October.
That's what I thought we voted on.
Okay,
We didn't vote
You
yet.
haven't voted.
Call a question. All in favor?
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Motion carries.
thank you. Okay, we're getting at the tail end, folks. Promise you, there's 3 more. We just have this last one from administration. Back here in this corner, Alec, if you can come to the front with me. This is Alec Aguarta. He's our Vista volunteer. And Alec has completed his time with us at the Council of Governments. He was based in Marfa, was having to live in Alpine, most of that COVID. So I'm sure that his, you have to get close so they can see you right here. There we go. So yeah, it was a unique situation for Alec. He made the best of it. I know that he did a tremendous amount of work and was really inspired by the students with the school districts within our region. And so trying to make that connection with Workforce Solutions and the students. And so we're hoping that we can maximize on what he started with that process. And he is not going to be leaving the Tri-County area anytime soon. You'll be there until when? December?
Probably late October.
Okay, till October. So Alec is now going to move on to serve as a Vista leader at the in Austin for the EDA Austin office. So he's had his fix of rural life, and he's going back to one of the bigger cities in Texas. But we just wanted to thank him for his time and commitment to this organization. And so thank you, Alex.
Thank and I would just like to give thanks to Peggy and Annette and the Rio Grande Council of Governments. I've just learned a lot this past year and a lot of professional development, and it's greatly appreciative of my time here. And West Texas will always forever be in my heart.
Yes, and he's originally from Houston, so it was
Yes.
vastly different for him.
Yes,
So
very
a
different.
very big city, big school district, very diverse. So he did a 180. So
Yes.
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 All right. Well, thank you,
Well,
Alex.
thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, and I'll now turn it over to Marisa to finish up the last 2 agenda items.
Hi, Board of Directors. Marisa Quintanilla, Regional Services Director. Requesting board approval on the submittal of the revised Solid Waste Advisory Committee bylaws and resolution affirming the revised bylaws to the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality. Behind your agenda item, you have the red line, which we made changes on the first page, as you can see. Made changes to add a fourth representative to the solid waste companies in the private sector. And so we went ahead and requested that change. And then also, I believe that, okay, I apologize. I thought I had stricken out on the second page under, the officers. It's showing here as a clean, but I think in the previous draft, it was the previous biennium. So on the second page under officers for their, for the term, the fiscal year. So I believe it reflected 2021, and now that we're looking at 2022 through 23.
Okay. Is there a second? Thank you, Ms. Sinani. Any other questions or comments at this time? All right, like to call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Next item.
Board of Directors requesting your approval on the submittal of the FY23 Solid Waste Advisory Committee's membership and resolution affirming the committee's composition to the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality, Office of Waste and Waste Permit Division. Behind your agenda item, you have the red line, and you also have the clean line, the clean version and resolution. We went ahead and updated the membership, as you can see. We do have a new city manager for City of Presidio, Rodriguez. Town of Van Horn, we do have a new representative for that entity. Doña Ana as well, Mr. Eric Navarrete. And we do on the private waste management companies, we have some updates there as well. In terms of our state official, we have a new representative, representative from Texas, from TCQ. And those were the changes for the committee's membership for FY23.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Is there any other comments or questions at this time? Okay, call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, under executive directors, we don't have anything to report under area agency on aging, with the exception of the Aging in Texas conference went really great. We had a lot of support. Thank you, Representative Nello, for attending our reception on Thursday. We will hopefully give some highlights to that at our annual meeting, but it went really well. Under executive directors report, I do not have anything to report on that section, so I'll turn it over to President Schwartzman.
Thanks again. Want to thank everybody for being here today. Very excited to continue to serve. Also, on Wednesday was Ukrainian Independence Day. With Sister Cities International, there was an initiative for a bell ringing ceremony with the 27 Ukraine U.S. sister cities. Given the fact of the blessings that we have here across our different counties and the struggle for freedom and peace that we see in Ukraine, I would like to observe a moment of silence and solidarity with those who are fighting and those that lost their lives in Ukraine at this time. Okay, thank you very much. And that is the report that I have here today. I want to wish everybody a wonderful weekend up ahead. And thank you.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Is there a second? Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further comments or questions at this time? Hearing none. Call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.
Thank you, everyone. Appreciate you joining us virtually. Have a great weekend.
Thank you.